Hello there makers, it is Jo, and today we're on episode 8 of 10 on how to learn to sew from scratch. Hopefully from the last tutorial you'll have got to know your sewing machine a little bit, you'll have made a few little projects, and today we're going to look at making a cushion cover. Cushion covers are really easy to make and so easy to customise and move on. You can make them to your own personal taste, and there's lots of embellishments that you can add. We're not following a pattern specifically, but I'm going to give you some measurements for a cushion, but of course you're going to need to measure the cushion that you've got. All the products that I use are listed below, so if you need to go and get a cushion innard or some fabric, then that is below. I'm using a cotton ticking today, which is a canvas style fabric. I've used it to make a tote bag. It's perfect for home furnishings. I'm still working out of my trusty shoebox, so I have been trying to encourage new sewers to get a shoebox and collect all the things that they need. You don't need a spare room to start sewing, you just need a few simple tools in a box, which were outlined in episode 1. Let's go and cut out at the cutting table, and I can show you the measurements or how to measure your own cushion. To cut out a cushion cover, you need to measure from the side seam of the cushion cover to the other side seam. This one is 35 centimeters square, and you don't want it to be too baggy because you want to be able to the cushion to be sort of plumped inside the cushion cover. But you also need to be aware that you will have to have a seam allowance on the piece of fabric that you cut. So I have measured my cushion cover at 35 centimeters. So the square I've cut is 37 centimeters. So I've given myself a 1 centimeter seam allowance to make this cushion. So this is the square that's going to go on the top of my cushion, like this. And now we need to think about what we're going to put on the back. I can't just cut out another square because then I would need some way of getting the cushion in and out of the cover. To cover the back, I'm going to have an envelope opening. So I've cut another piece of fabric that's 37 centimeters by 25 centimeters. So there's a little overlap of the two pieces of back fabric here. So you need 3 pieces to make your cushion cover, a front and 2 backs that overlap. The equipment I need from my shoebox is my magnet, because I'm going to be taking some pins out, some pins to pin the sides together, my machine scissors, which I always like to have by the machine, and my 2 pieces of fabric. So making cushion covers isn't difficult. It's a little bit like bag making. You need to do everything in the right order so that you can get at particular pieces to do all of the components and processes that make it. So the first thing we're going to do is to finish the edge of the back pieces. So we leave one as a raw edge, and the other one we're going to fold down by 1 centimeter, then fold it down again by 1 centimeter, and we can pin this in place. It doesn't need lots of pins. The better you get, the less you need to pin, but I wouldn't want it to pop up. This is going to be seen from the right side because this is going to be what's called top stitched, which means you'll be able to see the stitching on both sides. I'm going to sew close to the edge on the wrong side, so from the right side I'll have a nice straight row of stitching. I need to do that on both back pieces. We're going to remember all those good habits that we've learned from the previous episodes, which is to make sure that the needle's down, the foot's down, we're not starting too close to the edge and chewing all the fabric. Going to back tack and then use something to make sure that we're keeping a straight line. So we either keep the foot in our eye line or we keep the measuring plate in our eye line. We're also going to remember to back tack at the beginning and the end. Foot up, needle up to snip off our threads and keep everything tidy. Make sure we put our threads back ready for the next seam line. We can give these a final press, because the best way to get a good finish on your projects is to press as you go. You can't just press it at the end. If you press each part as you go along, then each part will fit together more snugly. Okay, it may be tempting now to sort of put your cushion cover together and whiz around, but you've got to think about how you're going to close this and how you're going to make sure that you can get to the bit that you need to get to. So this is the envelope that we're going to put the cushion in, and I would like to have a button in the middle. So I need to find the center point on one of these back pieces to put the buttonhole, because if I don't put the buttonhole in now, it will be very difficult to get all of that under the machine. I've added 1 centimetre to each side because that's my seam allowance, and then between those marks I've took a measurement. It's 34 centimetres, so halfway is 17 centimetres, so I'm going to mark it. This is where I'm going to put a buttonhole. Once you've made your buttonhole, that one's going to go underneath. So that one's going to be the first one you put down, right sides together. Then you lay the second one on top, right sides together, and you can pin all the way around through all of the layers. So just make sure you're squaring everything up and you've got good corners to aim at for your pivot. And today I am going to put my pins in vertically because I'm not going to tack this or anything. I'm going to try and challenge myself to use the foot and find a seam line that runs straight. I've got some stripes to match up, so that's something to bear in mind if you're using a ticking. So on the end you get one stripe matching up to another. Okay, once you've pinned around the outside, you can now sew all the way around the outside, and you don't need to leave an opening to turn it out because we're going to use this to turn it back out the right way. I suggest you start on a side seam, don't start on a corner. If you start on a corner, you don't get that really nice smooth pivot that you've learnt to do. So start on a side seam, go up, round, all the way, and don't forget to zigzag all the way around so that your cushion doesn't fray. We're going to use some of those fabric handling techniques that we used when we made a tote bag. So we're going to take off the corners, not through the stitch line obviously, but just so that the corners point out when we turn it out the right way. So put your hand inside and turn your cushion cover to the right side. Use your point turner on the end of your seam gauge. So the seam gauge has got a triangle shape, and that's used for pushing out the corners. Do it carefully, you don't want to pierce that through. And your buttonhole is on the top. The buttonhole needs to be split open, and you do that with an unpicker. So you start by putting a pin each end of your buttonhole so that you don't scoot straight through and rip the fabric. Start in the middle and split the fabric out to the pin. Turn it round and split your fabric to the other pin. Take the pins out now, and you can test your button. And give your cushion a final press. I've sewn my beautiful ceramic button from the Orkney Islands that I had as a gift on, and I've used the shanked method that I've shown in the hand sewing episode 6. So this isn't absolutely tight, it's got a little bit of give, and that means that this thicker amount of fabric won't pucker when the cushion is filling out the space. The great thing about shoebox sewing is everything that you've used can be really quickly tidied away. And you're ready for a new project. Of course, once you've made your plain cushion, you could customize it. So you could use some piping, and that would require a little bit more of a specific and accurate sew around the outer rim, but you can check that out on my piping tutorial, which is here. Or you could add a little pocket, put a reading book in. If it's a child's cushion for their bed, you can make a little pocket on the front that you either put a toy in or you can put a reading book in. You can add a ruffle or a frill around the outside. That will need a gathering stitch, so you can either use a long stitch on your sewing machine or you can hand gather all the way around. If you fold a piece of fabric in half, gather it, and then you attach that inside the outer seam. There's lots and lots of things that you can try. If you're finding that you're not getting a buttonhole correctly, you can check out a tutorial here. Or if you want to change it up a little bit, you can use snap fasteners on the back, or you can add little ties, very similar to how we made the ties on the tote bag. So you just add some ties on the back and you can make bows that hold the back of your cushion together. A few examples. So here's the one from today. This is just the envelope one with the button. So you could have 2 buttons equally spaced. You could try a 9 patch one. So this one is made up of little pieces of fabric that make up that front piece. The back is still the envelope style. This one doesn't have a button or anything. And also you could try the piping. It really finishes off the cushion. This one has some applique, so I sewed some petal shapes on, went round and round and round with my machine stitch and left the edges nice and raw, and there's a huge statement button on there. This is an applique one, so this patch here is a cutout of the fabric. So if you've got a fabric with a large print, you can cut out that print, and again I've sewn around there with my sewing machine. This back on this one has 3 buttons. The reason for that, my daughter puts all her teddies inside these little pockets created by the envelope on the back. So there's a few ideas of how you can move your cushions on to the next level. There's no need to put a zip on a cushion if you're not ready for that yet. There's lots of other ways that you can add closures. Do share your early makes with us. We would love to see how you've got started and how you're progressing in your sewing. Make an account with us, sign up, it's free, and you can share your projects and you'll get lots of inspiration from other Minerva makers. You can also explore becoming a member of our craft club, where you will receive promotions and events throughout the year. Do come back next time for episode 9. Are we on episode 9? Episode 9, and we're going to make some pyjama bottoms. A really easy, brilliant area for people to learn to sew garments. Thank you very much for watching. Do come back for episode 9.